archaeology, by its very nature, destroys the ancient site it is uncovering. That was a surprise to me at first. The obligation that all archaeologists have during the process of digging is to document their findings for other historians to review and interpret in the future. Ziv Herzog is an Israeli archaeologist at Tel Aviv University. He has concluded that the Israelites were never in Egypt, did not wander in the desert, did not conquer the land in a military campaign, and did not pass it on to the 12 tribes of Israel. I was keen to ask him how archaeology works and what role interpretation plays within it, to better understand how people have come to such different conclusions.
Well, field archaeology, digging, was the most exciting part, and I liked it very much. I did it for over 30 seasons of field work all over the country. And then I realized that this is the easiest part, because the interpretation, the analysis, the study of the object, this is the harder one, which I'm still doing for many years. And as I used to tell my students, archaeology has about 10% of data and 90% of interpretation. So, and this is why it's such an, I would say, controversial in many aspects and open to different opinions.
Well, you talked about the interpretation, and that is fascinating because, as I understand it, once a site is dug up, it's destroyed.
Right. Yeah, this is one of the uniqueness of archaeology. You cannot repeat the experiment. Once it is done, it is done. No one can re-excavate the finds you have excavated. And therefore, our responsibility is much bigger than in other fields of science because of this uniqueness of our work. It was sometimes compared to ethnography, when you get information from a person, then you kill him, because and no one else can ask him again the same questions or check your data, because this is what archaeology does, actually.
So it's really important that you take really accurate information down during the digging process, isn't it?
That's correct. Actually, even the digging process itself is it has some interpretive, because you have to decide if this stone is part of a wall during the excavation or it is just fallen stone, and your decision may later affect the reconstruction of the building, the shape of it, the plan of it, and so on. So it is, the excavation itself is interpretive, and obviously later the analysis of the data. It's very complicated.
So once a site is dug up, then different people look at it and they interpret it according to what they see.
That's correct. First of all, it's a responsibility for the excavator to publish the results as quick as possible, that other scholars will be able to analyze it as well. So this is our responsibility to publish the results of the excavations, and many archaeologists are well behind this duty, and which will enable other interpret it either the same way or different way, and this is the basis of our discussion. That's right.
So it is important to understand that the findings that have been recorded about a particular dig site are open to a broad range of interpretations among scholars. These different interpretations create a large variable for determining what the historical facts might really be. Well, lately the Bible has been challenged greatly by people like Israel Finkelstein. Tell me about what's going on there.
Yes. Well, there will always be those who challenge the Bible. There always have been, there always will be. And archaeology has come to play an important role in challenging the Bible and in confirming the Bible at the same time. So we have these two competing views of the Bible. Just like the Bible or any text or narrative we read requires a certain amount of interpretation or sophistication in reading, similarly archaeological data is not neutral. it has to be read, it has to be interpreted, and on any kind of scientific data, there are going to be differences of perspective, differences of viewpoint on how one looks at things, and so too it is with archaeological data as it relates to the Bible. I can look at the same thing and see something in a positive way. Somebody else can come at it from a different perspective and see it in a negative way. So one's assumptions influences greatly how one views archaeological data.
I want to talk about interpretation of archaeology.
Yeah.
In other words, BTEC digs at a site,
Yeah.
and he then documents that information. He destroys the site basically to take it apart, and then he will put the dirt back over it when he's done. He has a limited period of time, is what I understand. And then he documents that and he publishes that. That's how archaeology works for other people then to interpret what he says, correct?
That's absolutely true, except archaeologists have the tendency to interpret their own evidence as well. That's the danger. So when BTEC says to you, these can't be the Israelites, he's no longer an archaeologist, he's now a historian. And that's not what his role is. His role is to excavate and produce the evidence for historians to work on. Now, he is a professor of Egyptology, so he's perfectly entitled to have his opinions about the history as well. But there are two roles that he's performing here. One is an archaeologist's role, and the other is a historian's role. Now, I'm a pure historian, so I look at the evidence that he excavates, and I interpret it in a different way to the way he does.
Is there a problem with interpreting archaeology? Is there a problem with interpretation?
The problem with this type of archaeology is it has no voice because there are no written texts. We are dealing with an excavation area where no texts are appearing out of the ground. So we have no letters, we have no tablets, nothing like that. So it's mute in that respect. What we have is pottery, bones, styles of houses, ways of burial, that sort of thing, but we have no text. So nothing that says this is the tomb of Joseph, this is the house of Jacob. We have nothing like that at all.
Why?
Because in this particular period in time, these people were not writing down anything.